Next on Currents News, an emotional memorial at a Queens church for a mom and her 2 children killed when a fire destroyed their home. The Catholic community is rallying around the sole survivor. The governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo, Rossello, might be on the verge of quitting his job. Reports from San Juan say he's about to resign following days of citizen protests against him. We'll have the latest. Former special counsel Robert Mueller testifying today on Capitol Hill, lawmakers wanting to know more about his investigation of President Trump and Russia. Plus, from his father's deathbed to Capitol Hill, NYPD Detective Luis Alvarez's son is speaking out after the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund was saved. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. An emotional memorial remembering 3 lives snuffed out by Sunday's house fire in Richmond Hill, Queens. Hundreds of mourners attended the service at Holy Child Jesus Church and comforted the family's sole survivor. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports from the church.
The Richmond Hill Catholic community gathering to remember Sylvia and her children, Guadalupe and Gilbert, who died in Sunday's house fire.
We're mourning in the community, but we'll get together, we'll pass. We will be okay.
The family frequently attended Mass at Holy Child Jesus Church. 51-year-old Sylvia Umana alongside her kids, 7-year-old Guadalupe Perez, 15-year-old Gabriel Diaz, and 19-year-old Gilbert Diaz. Only Gabriel survived the inferno. At Tuesday's memorial mass, extended family and friends supported him. Bishop Octavio Cisneros, the pastor of Holy Child Jesus, celebrated the mass in English and Spanish. After the service, there was an emotional outpouring of condolences. Ana Rojas's daughter was best friends with Guadalupe. They were first-grade classmates at Holy Child Jesus Catholic Academy.
Oh, she was such a sweetheart. She was always happy and giving smiles to everybody. She was a little bit shy at the beginning, but we always tell her, you go ahead and make with friends, make a lot of friends.
Friends placed flowers, stuffed animals, and handwritten cards at a growing memorial outside the school. One child wrote, "I know you're in heaven with your mom, brother, and God." Before the mass, parents gathered in the academy to find ways to better cope with the tragedy.
It helped us a lot and with the parents that they were talking and how other parents cope with their kids and how they spoke.
Norma Vasquez didn't realize her 5th grade son was friends with Guadalupe until she told him about the fire.
He looked at me like, I know her. And I was like, you knew her? Yes. She used to hug me every morning at breakfast. She used to say, I missed you. And then he started to cry, so that got me even sadder.
Sylvia was a single mother from El Salvador. The principal of Holy Child Jesus Catholic Academy, Patricia Winters, said the hardworking woman was involved in the lives of her children and of the school.
Ms. Umana loved her children. She was their biggest advocate, and she was also a great help to the school.
Mrs. Winters set up a donation page for people to help the family. Go online to GoFundMe.com and search Guadalupe Perez / Sylvia Umana Memorial Fund. In Richmond Hill, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
The funerals for Sylvia and her children, Guadalupe and Gilbert, will be held Monday, July 29th at 10:15 in the morning at Holy Child Jesus Church in Richmond Hill, Queens. There's increasing political turmoil in Puerto Rico tonight. Sources in San Juan are insisting Governor Ricardo Rossello is about to quit his job as impeachment proceedings are about to begin. But he isn't gone yet, and his chief spokesman is dismissing resignation talk as rumors. Still, Rossello remains under pressure from protesters to resign. Police firing tear gas into a crowd trying to break up one of the largest protests Puerto Rico has ever seen. People all calling for Governor Ricardo Rossello's resignation. Their wish might soon come true. Local media in San Juan reporting the governor was planning on resigning Wednesday. But at the same time, his public affairs secretary releasing this statement reading, Governor Ricardo Rossello Narvaez has not resigned and continues in Puerto Rico. As he said yesterday, he is in a process of reflection and listening to the people, calling rumors of an imminent resignation incorrect. This statement in line with what Rossello said last week.
Yo voy a continuar en mi trabajo.
Rossello has previously announced that he will not seek re-election in 2020. The streets of San Juan littered with damage for the last 2 weeks following mass demonstrations, but protesters show no signs of slowing down. They're demanding Rossello step down after the public revelation of chat messages between him and members of his inner circle that have been called lewd and offensive. They're also angry about what they call ongoing government corruption, including financial mismanagement and how the Rossello administration dealt with the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. Protests have spread from Puerto Rico to U.S. cities like Los Angeles and New York, even prompting President Donald Trump to speak out.
Incompetent, totally grossly incompetent leadership at the top of Puerto Rico. The people of Puerto Rico are great. And the people of Puerto Rico like me, and they should, because nobody's given them what I give them. But the leadership is corrupt.
If Rossello does resign, the island's Secretary of Justice, Wanda Vasquez, is expected to take his place. President Trump is suing to keep his tax returns secret. He wants a federal court in Washington to block a New York law that would give Congress access to his tax documents. The new legal action is arguing that lawmakers don't have a legitimate purpose in seeing the Trump returns. His lawyers also claim the president is being harassed with political retribution since announcing his run for president. Trump has refused to show his taxes. Traditionally, modern presidential candidates disclose their returns. High drama on Capitol Hill all day today. Former special counsel Robert Mueller testifying to Congress about his investigation into Russia's attempts to interfere with the 2016 presidential election. He took questions from lawmakers for hours. Omar Jimenez has the latest.
Nearly 100 days after the release of the report detailing Russia's attempts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, a reluctant Robert Mueller testified before Congress.
The finding indicates that the president was not exculpated for the acts that he allegedly committed.
Some Democrats seeing the testimony as a chance to build the case for impeachment. But Mueller says his investigation could not indict the president because of Justice Department guidelines.
I believe a reasonable person looking at these facts could conclude that all three elements of the crime of obstruction of justice have been met. The reason, again, that you did not indict Donald Trump is because of OLC opinion stating that you cannot indict a sitting president, correct?
That is correct.
Hours later, the former special counsel amended his testimony.
That is not the correct way to say it. We did not reach a determination as to whether the president committed a crime.
The star witness refused to say if the president committed a crime and instead referred Congress to the findings of his 448-page report, as Republicans pushed to close this chapter in American history.
It's time for the curtain to close on the Russia hoax. The conspiracy theory is dead.
In Washington, Omar Jimenez, Currents News.
NYPD Detective Luis Alvarez riveted the nation's attention on the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. In his dying days, he pushed Congress to bankroll the program that helps suffering first responders and their families. Now that the campaign has succeeded on Capitol Hill, his son David is thanking lawmakers.
When my father testified not too long ago, he said that he was coming down here to make sure that you never forget. And I want to thank you for not forgetting him, not forgetting all the other first responders who tirelessly worked to see this pass. So thank you.
The 9/11 Fund aids first responders who were injured during the terror attacks and its aftermath, rescuing people and removing debris under hazardous conditions. The legislation provides money for the program through the year 2090. Coming up in the program, we'll speak with NYPD Chaplain Monsignor Robert Romano. He reported to Ground Zero every day for months after the terror attack, breathing in the dangerous dust. He'll join me to talk about what this means for all first responders, including himself. The House of Representatives has overwhelmingly condemned a global boycott movement against Israel. By a vote of 398 to 17, the bipartisan resolution calls the boycott destructive of prospects for progress towards peace. The lopsided backing of the Jewish state overcame objections of liberal Democrats. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar had opposed the measure, saying Congress should condemn the violence that perpetrates the occupation of Palestine-claimed territory. A changing of the guard in Great Britain as Boris Johnson takes over as Prime Minister of the UK. Outgoing leader Theresa May left numbers 10 Downing Street this morning to face Parliament for the last time as Prime Minister. She then submitted her resignation to the Queen. Not long after that, Johnson met with Elizabeth officially as British Prime Minister and later spoke about England's future.
The doubters, the doomsters, the gloomsters, they are going to get it wrong again. The people who bet against Britain are going to lose their shirts because we're going to restore trust in our democracy.
Johnson faces several big challenges as he takes office, including Britain's troubled exit from the European Union. The structure of one of the world's most famous cathedrals is in jeopardy tonight, and there's not much anyone can do to save it. The rebuilding of Notre Dame Cathedral is going up against Mother Nature and a heat wave that will last all week. The chief architect of France's historic monument says he's afraid of the high temps that could cause the vaulted ceilings of the beloved cathedral to collapse. Specialists are working to stabilize the roof before reconstruction work begins. There's a lot more news headed your way. We sit down with a first responder and parish priest who reported to Ground Zero for months. Why he says 9/11 is the devastating day that just keeps repeating itself. Imagine being a U.S. citizen stuck in ICE custody for weeks. One 18-year-old is finally being released. And a bombed-out church restored and rededicated. The latest from Sri Lanka. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Brooklyn Monsignor Robert Romano is very familiar with the pain and suffering of the 9/11 heroes. He's an NYPD chaplain who was at Ground Zero every day for months after the terrorists brought down the towers. He joins us now.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Now, Monsignor Romano, as someone who worked day by day, side by side with the 9/11 first responders, how big is this victory?
I think it's a very big victory, considering the fact that when we were down there, we were told that the air quality was terrific, you know, that everything was good. And we found out that it really wasn't. And today, people are sick, people are dying. And I think this victory is an opportunity for the citizens of this country to say thank you to the people who put their lives on the line every single day to first look and rescue people, and then after a period of time recover and get back to some sense of normalcy. But is there normalcy? Yeah. Now that after 9/11 is over, people say it's over, yeah. But it's still there. It reeks its ugly head every single day.
Yeah, now people are calling this a victory, but what are the heroes of 9/11 saying about how this will help them and their families?
Well, I think it gives them some sense of hope and some sense of future for their families. I think that's what they're most concerned about. You know, people who are sick and dying, they know what's happening to them, and they're most concerned about their families as well. You know, and I think this gives them a sense that there's help for their families in the future.
Now, you were there after 9/11. You breathed in that dangerous dust. How has that experience impacted you, and do you worry at all about your future?
Yeah, I'm monitored as well. I'm sure that all the other chaplains, the fire chaplains, as well as the police chaplains, we go to monitoring, you know, and thank God, so far so good. I had a little scare this year. It turned out to be just the problem was the wrong medication, but I'm doing well, and I thank God every day that I am.
What is it like to live with that fear?
Well, it's something that I don't dwell on every day, but for those who are sick, those who are in the hospital that I go to visit, it is something that they have to deal with. Certainly the pain of being sick and knowing that this could be the end, but also to worrying about their families as well.
Now, many experts are saying we haven't even scratched the surface of the illnesses that have been caused and will be caused from working on that pile. Is the fund even sufficient to help them and their families?
I don't know. I'm not an auditor. I'm not a person that really knows the exact amount of money or whatever it goes into figuring out these things. But I think it's a victory that it goes so far into the future.
Now, Monsignor, what are your hopes for the future?
Well, I just hope that we'll be able to keep up the monitoring of our first responders, as well as people don't realize the people that work there too, the steel workers that were there every day, the civilians who did a lot to save people's lives that day. In the police department this very week, we've had 3 funerals for police officers who worked there and have suffered 9/11 catastrophic diseases.
What is it like for you to attend those funerals?
It's difficult because many times these police officers are retired, and so when we go in, you know, it's just an opportunity for the family to know that the police department has not forgotten them.
Monsignor Romano, chaplain for the NYPD, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A court win for the Trump administration over asylum. A federal judge is backing the new rule that prohibits many Central American migrants from getting into the U.S. Asylum seekers fleeing their homelands are banned from entering America if they come through Mexico or another country. Under the White House policy, they are required to apply for asylum in the country they traveled through. Federal District Judge Timothy Kelly said it's in the greater public interest to allow the policy. A sigh of relief tonight for an 18-year-old U.S. citizen who was wrongfully in ICE custody for 3 weeks. He's finally been released.
Home and see my mom, my family.
That is Francisco Galicia, who, despite being born in Dallas, was detained at an ICE checkpoint last month. According to his attorney, Galicia was stopped while traveling with a bunch of Latino friends. He had both his state ID and birth certificate on him, but they had conflicting details. ICE agents took him into custody on suspicion that he was in the U.S. illegally and his documents were fraudulent. The first half of the year has brought a new record high for homicides in Mexico. The country of almost 125 million now sees as many as 100 killings per day. So far in 2019, over 17,000 people have been slain. That's up more than 5% from the same period last year. Officials are blaming a rise in cartel and gang violence. Pope Francis is calling for new action to protect minors from abuse. He is endorsing a, quote, apostleship of prevention. The Holy Father delivering his recommendation in a video to Latin American leaders who are meeting about abuse prevention.
Quiero saludarlos a ustedes que están haciendo.
The Holy Father speaking to Catholic leaders in Mexico who are taking part in a 5-week training course designed to better protect young people. A church bombed by Islamic militants has been reconsecrated in Sri Lanka. St. Sebastian's unveiling a monument with the names of 114 people who died in the church on the holiest day of the year, Easter Sunday. 3 months ago, suicide bombers coordinated attacks on 3 churches around the country, murdering 259 people in total. Still to come on Currents News, a young boy is praying for the conversion of a governor, and thousands of people are joining him. Plus, he was the subject of an Oscar-winning film. Now the real-life Father Edward Flanagan is being considered for the highest honor. A special report tonight about a young boy with a big idea. He's starting a movement aimed at converting New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo. For the boy, reversing New York's law that removes all restrictions on abortion is a cause close to his young heart. Jack Timmons is your average 9-year-old boy. He draws, he prays,
hallowed be thy name,
and he spends time with his family. But life for Jack didn't start out so carefree.
He ended up turning totally blue on day 2 of life, and they air rushed him to Westchester Medical Center.
Jack's mom said doctors told her his neck muscles had been strained during a difficult delivery, leaving him unable to take in food. In that terrifying moment, the family turned to God.
Friends and family and so many people were praying for him, and he's fine. He made it through. He's a super awesome kid, but he's grown up knowing that story, and his siblings know that story, that prayer works, and prayer's powerful.
So Jack grew up knowing he could always turn to prayer, and that's exactly what he did during another upsetting moment in his life.
Congratulations to both sides.
The moment New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed the Reproductive Health Act, an extreme abortion law permitting the killing of babies even until the moment of birth.
I'll send instructions how to say if he doesn't know how to.
That's a really good idea, Jack.
Jack immediately began brainstorming how he could change Cuomo's mind and save babies like him.
I really was upset about abortion. I didn't want it to keep going on.
He had an idea, placing boxes in churches where people could put in handwritten prayers to convert Cuomo.
Dear Jack, may the Lord give you his peace. Thank you for your letter.
Excited, Jack wrote a letter to Franciscan friars asking for help with this project, but they had a different idea.
How about an online site where people can sign up to pray fast?
So right at this very computer, Jack and his father built this website, Convert Cuomo, a place where people from all over the world can pray for the governor's conversion.
Richard said, I will pray for him every day.
The website took off, and thousands of prayers have rolled in.
How's it make you feel?
I'm really excited.
Why are you excited?
Because I think that Governor Cuomo will get converted really soon.
The website inspiring so many, including Jack's pastor, Father Patrick Buckley.
He's a young man, and I think this young man, God has plans for him to go places. He's filled with the Spirit, and so is his family. And they're a wonderful example of a Catholic family.
But Jack's journey as a champion for the pro-life movement is just beginning. His next step, helping plan a Light Up New York State Day where pro-life rallies and white lights will allow people to express their support for the movement. It's being planned for October 22nd, 9 months after the RHA signing. More information can be found on Convert Cuomo.
Give us this day our daily bread.
Jack's success proving prayer does work and prayer is powerful. And maybe, just maybe, it could convert Governor Cuomo.
On earth as it is in heaven.
Since Jack's site has been launched, over 2,000 commitments of prayer have been made for Governor Cuomo. A new Pew survey suggests that some Catholics might want to crack open their catechisms. The survey finds that exactly half of those asked understand church teaching that the bread and wine used during communion comes through transubstantiation, the literal body and blood of Jesus Christ. The other 50% incorrectly think the church teaches that the bread and wine are merely symbols. Finally, tonight, you might remember when Spencer Tracy won an Oscar for playing him in the 1938 movie Boys Town. Now, the real-life Father Edward Flanagan, who found the famed orphanage in 1917, is up for a greater reward. The Vatican is currently in the process of declaring him venerable, a step closer to sainthood. If approved, it'll take 2 miracles attributed to his intercession to see him through to beatification and ultimately canonization. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.